Hello, beautiful human. Welcome back to the Unstoppable You podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here. Thanks so much for joining me. We are back with another juicy episode. So, welcome. If you're new around here, I'm Evie. I'm your host, life and confidence coach, and business mentor. And you're listening to the Unstoppable You podcast or watching over on YouTube. Hello. It's so good to be here with you. Now, if you are a go-getter, an achiever, if you are someone who knows that there's more for yourself in this lifetime, but you feel like you're holding yourself back for a number of different reasons, maybe there's fear and doubt, or a lack of confidence, a lack of worthiness, some old limiting beliefs, some stuff that feels really heavy that's weighing you down, maybe even stuff that you're not fully aware of, but you just know that you're not living into all of your potential, that you know that there's some more for you, and also want to feel really good in yourself when you're going after those things, then you are absolutely in the right place. And today's podcast episode is 100% for you. So stay tuned. I'm really excited to dive into our conversation today. Now, just before we do, I would love to invite you to come check out the confidence code. If you're listening to this episode, if you've clicked on this one specifically, then it's very likely that the confidence code is going to be really supportive for you. I'm so excited for this program. It really is the key foundations to building lasting confidence, from really creating a beautiful inner connection with your true self, building self-compassion, talking to yourself with love and kindness, building belief and confidence within yourself so that you can go after the things that you really want to be and have and hold in this lifetime. Feeling really confident in who you truly are, and really confident going after what it is that you really want, and ultimately creating a life that feels true and authentic to you, feels good on the inside, and is totally in alignment with your true self. And it's a 4-week foundational program. It's going to be a blend of teaching and group coaching calls. You also get a bonus one-to-one call with me, which I'm so excited for. And there's just so much that we could cover in that time together. So if you are interested, if this sounds like you, then click the link below, either in the show notes or the description, and go check it out. Early bird pricing is open for this week only at the time of recording this, so make sure you jump on at the lowest it's ever going to be. All right, my love. So let's dive into today's podcast episode. I just really wanted to speak to the 3 main blocks that I see limiting or holding people back from feeling really confident in themselves, in their true selves, and going after the things that they really want to have and hold and be in this lifetime. So I'm going to be going over the 3 most common confidence blocks and how you can overcome them. So the 3 key blocks and how you can overcome them. So block number 1, the first thing that holds you back from feeling confident, that makes us feel less confident in ourselves, is of course self-doubt. Now, what causes self-doubt can be a number of different reasons, but one of the probably the biggest and the most common one that I see in many clients is your inner critic. I like to call it your inner critic, but you might also refer to it as your ego. You might call it your inner mean girl, or, the fear-based voice. It's the self-doubt, the loud chitter-chatter that says, you're not good enough, pretty enough, smart enough, young enough, you don't know enough, whatever enough. It's that not enoughness story. It generally is, really critical, and is always looking for the danger, the fear, the what's wrong, the not enoughness stuff, and any potential risk to your comfort zone or to your safety in many ways. And I say safety with sort of air quotes there, because remember, it's perceived threat, and oftentimes perceived threat in today's day and age is someone's not going to like me, or I might not get as many likes or comments on this, or someone might say something, or, obviously that feels like a threat to you personally. So your inner critic is on high alert there. However, when I say safety, it's not a life or death thing. Yeah. But back in the day it was. And that's why we are so heightened. Our inner critic and our mind is so heightened to search for danger to keep us safe. Yeah. It's hardwired for safety and survival. So your inner critic is often dialed right up. unless you've done some of this inner work to dial it back down, to keep it in check, to tame it, to start to heal your inner critic. Yeah. And so for many of you, and mostly this is louder for women, and that is purely because we essentially have on average double the amount of thoughts every single day than men do. That is just how we're hardwired. And so we are the overanalyzers, we're the overthinkers, we are constantly going over things in our minds. And when we have a really loud inner critic, this leads to like a more heightened sense of self-doubt, where it's planting those seeds of not enoughness, or what about this, or have you thought about this, or going over all of the possible scenarios that might happen, that could happen, that might be, that might cause some kind of danger or threat to you, to go over all of that stuff to keep you safe and small. But oftentimes, a lot of that, like I said earlier, it's the perceived fear of what might go wrong instead of looking at, well, what might go right, or what could I gain here, or what could I win from this, or is it worth that risk? And a lot of the time, our fear, our doubt, our inner critic is not always true, that there's not always evidence to back it up to prove it's right. And so oftentimes, essentially all it's doing is keeping us in our comfort zone, is keeping us exactly where we are in our safe, squishy comfort zone. But if you have that longing for more, if you want to feel like you're living into your potential, like you're really sharing your gifts with the world in the way that feels really good and authentic and aligned to you, if you know that the inner critic is actually making you feel really anxious, it's causing you to, go into those over-analyzing, overthinking, just going round and round and round, and all of the possibilities and all of the what-ifs and all of the fear chitter-chatter, and you want to feel more calm, more grounded, more trusting of yourself, if you want to just be able to make decisions with ease and go after those things, then we need to get that inner critic in check. We need to start to work with it. And I've got a really beautiful process that I guide you through inside the Confidence Code that I share with clients all the time. And it's the thing that really changed my life. And I honestly think that if there's one gift to give yourself, it's this. It is this. So really, the first one is really thinking about, how can I overcome doubt? And more specifically, how can I start to change my relationship with my inner critic? How can I start to dial that down and heal that relationship and start to listen to your intuition instead? So as I mentioned, I'm going to guide you through all of that process and give you the specific tools that you need to do that inside the Confidence Code, so that first number one and probably the most important block to confidence, to living with contentment, to living with believing in yourself, with going after what it is that you really want, with trusting yourself, and coming from that place of like love and trust and abundance and the endless possibilities, as opposed to staying in fear and doubt and what if, and that really restrictive, often feels really icky, anxious. Like anxious feelings are probably a common thing for you, and just stressing about everything. All of those overthinking, all of those stressy thoughts and feelings no longer need to be your reality. They really don't. And so, yeah, that is the number one pillar, or the number one thing that I think that blocks many of you, many of us, me included, some time ago before I did this work on myself, that stops you from feeling really confident, really calm, really grounded and trusting in who you are. Okay, that's number one. Okay, so the second block to feeling confident and trusting and whole and worthy within yourself, the second block is the P word, people pleasing. Hands up, who's a people pleaser? Where are my people pleasers? Where are my people pleasers at? You know who you are. A people pleaser is essentially someone who is looking externally from themselves to seek reassurance, validation, acceptance from other people around them. You deeply care about how people think about you, how you show up in the world, the work that you do, the quality of the work that you do, your relationships, etc. And you feel perhaps quite shaky internally. And so we're often taught and conditioned to look outside of ourselves for these things. And so it might be that you people please around a select few people. It could be family members, it could be loved ones, it could be people in your close inner circle. Or it could be just that you're a people pleaser as a whole. You're a yes person. You're the person who says yes, that goes out, overextends themselves to be there for everyone else. You go rescue everyone. You're at their beck and call. You want to help and serve and support other people. And people pleasing can come up in really sneaky ways. Absolutely can come a really sneaky way. So you might think that, hey, I've been dialing down my inner people pleaser for a long time now. I feel like she's in check, and actually I'm living really in line with who I truly am, and really choosing what I want to do and showing up in my way and really validating myself, accepting myself fully from the inside out instead of looking for that externally. But then you notice it starts to creep in again, that you really want to like please other people. You extend yourself. You're saying yes. You're overcommitting yourself. You're over delivering on all of these things, and you can see that it sometimes pops up in many ways. So people pleasing is often a block to confidence, and people pleasing should really be a whole nother separate episode. And perhaps I'll do that in the near future there for you. And we're going to talk a lot more about this in the confidence code, of course, as well, because it's such a key thing that can sometimes play out in really sneaky ways and hold you back from feeling really accepting and loving and confident in who you truly are and really believing in who you truly are. But essentially, if we think about people pleasing is all about, I'm looking externally for love, for reassurance, for acceptance from other people. And then I would lovingly ask yourself this question of, why am I looking externally for that stuff? And perhaps the answer here is that I'm not giving that to myself. Perhaps the root cause of this, and this is what I often see, is that often a root cause is that, well, I don't fully love and wholeheartedly accept who I am, all versions of myself, all parts of myself. And so I'm looking for other people to validate me, to accept me, to give me that reassurance and validation. So if I'm pleasing them, if I'm like making sure that I'm ticking all the boxes for them, if I'm overextending and delivering and being the nice girl and being the yes girl and being the good girl and all of those sorts of things, then they're going to love and accept me. But the root cause often is, well, if I can do this inner work and fully love and accept and wholeheartedly accept who I truly am, then I don't have to look externally from myself to do that with others, to seek that from others. So oftentimes that is the root cause. So I would lovingly ask you to start inquiring about, well, does that feel true and right for me? And how can I start to do the inner work to start to really fully love and accept who I truly am from the inside out, so that I no longer seek that externally? How can I start to feel really believing and empowered and confident in who I am, and start to, step into my power, to start to make really empowered decisions for myself that are aligned with what I want to do, that are aligned with what I need, what are my needs, and how can I get my needs met? And for many of you, you'll be like, oh, but that sounds really selfish and icky, and oh, how can I do that? And am I allowed to just do that kind of thing? Absolutely. And we do it in a really beautiful way that honors your truth and your true self, but also means like you don't have to be this awful human. And I think there's a fear that maybe you'll become, well, this really selfish person, and that you won't give to anyone else, or you won't serve in the way that you really want to and help others, because I know that that's a part of who you are as well. And that's really important to you as well. That act of service and contribution in a number of different ways in your life, and whatever that looks for you personally. But I know that that's also really important to you, and you don't have to forgo that. You don't have to let go of that. That's a part of who you are. It's a beautiful thing, and we never want to get rid of that completely. However, we want to start making decisions that are really honoring your true self, that are honoring what you really want, your true desires, that are nurturing you, that are looking after you as well, that we're not overextending, overgiving, people pleasing, and doing it in for our own detriment. Yeah. I remember some time ago, many years ago, again, before I'd done all this inner work on myself, where I'd almost felt like I lost a bit of who I truly was, my authentic self, my authentic magic, I like to call it, because I got so caught up in a world of people pleasing and all of this conditioning that it was like, oh, well, what do I even want in this? And what is my true desire? And how do I really want to show up? And what's my truth? And is this actually a hell yes for me or not? And so, yeah, it can be really subtle, but it can also be really profound. It can also be one of those things that has a flow and effect for so much. And like I said, for me, it was like really starting to uncover my authentic magic and my true self, because I'd got so swept up in people pleasing and living for everyone else and all of the external stuff and none of the internal stuff that actually really matters. So people pleasing is the second most common block that I see that holds you back from feeling really confident in who you are and believing and trusting of your true self. And it's a real sneaky one, and it's a real important one. So people pleasing is the second one there. And I would lovingly invite you to start thinking about, am I a people pleaser? You'll know if you are, and start to really think about, is there an opportunity here for me to start to do this beautiful inner work on myself, to start to connect with my true self, to really embrace and own my authentic magic, and start to fully love and accept who I truly am, and no longer look externally for all of the love, the reassurance, the acceptance that I really am deeply craving internally from myself, that no one else can fully give to me the way that I can give it to myself, the way that I'm really craving. And it's such a beautiful thing when you can do that for yourself. It really, really is. Okay, so the third most common block to confidence and how to overcome it is really about the fear of failure and perfectionism. I was almost like, what do I call this? It's perfectionism, it's fear of failure, it's all interlinked and interwoven here. So the fear of failure, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? It's like, I've got to be an achiever, I've got to be winning, I've got to be exceeding, I've got to be achieving and making sure that I'm achieving this stuff, that I'm doing really good work, that I'm doing well, that what I put out to the world is really good, that I'm not quote unquote failing in any way, or that I'm not being perceived in a negative light in any way, that I'm always achieving and I'm always winning, that I'm always performing at a really high standard. And you know what I mean by this, right? It's like I've got to be winning, I've got to be achieving, I've got to be doing the stuff. But what happens there is that fear of failure is of course interwoven with so much of what we've talked about already here around the fear voice, the inner critic, the loud inner critic, the doubt. Is that, well, I have to be perfect, I have to perform and exceed, I have to be doing really well, and if I'm not, well, what does that mean about my true self? What does that mean about me? And therefore, almost it becomes, and this is why it becomes such a huge block, is that it often then prevents us showing up and taking action and putting ourselves out there and learning and growing in the process. It's almost one of those things that really holds us in this ickiness, and also in your comfort zone. It holds us where we are and says, well, if I don't know, if I can't control the situation, which I mean is basically all situations, we can only control ourselves, right? We can only control the way that we show up and our emotions and how we show up, right? The rest we can't control. And I know that's a really hard one to accept, right? Because controlling is essentially perfectionism. Control is fear, is like, I need to control everything to make sure that I'm okay, to make sure I'm safe, to make sure people like me, to make sure I'm accepted, to make sure I'm achieving, to make sure I'm winning, to make sure that I'm not failing in any way, whatever that looks like for you. And it's these high standards essentially is what it is. These high standards that we place upon ourselves, this perfectionism that we're striving for. I've got to look perfect. I've got to perform in a perfect way. I've got to produce perfect work. It's got to be the A+ stuff. It's got to be the things that convert. I've got to be achieving and winning, and I've got to be passing, right? I've got to be doing really, really well. And when we have these high standards, like, don't get me wrong, these high standards are amazing. I love that about you. I love that you're a perfectionist. However, there's a trap. There's the perfectionism trap. The perfectionist trap is when we have to achieve and be this perfect human, to achieve and be working and to be producing and creating in this perfect way. And if I'm not, well, we're creating this illusion of perfectionism that doesn't exist, that I can never, ever fully achieve or be. And therefore, it feeds the unworthiness stories within ourselves. It feeds the unworthiness feelings within you. Does that make sense? So it creates this dissonance, right? Because, well, I have to do really well. I have to be achieving. I have to be perfect. But if perfect doesn't exist, if these high standards are just way too high, then I'm burning myself out. I'm making myself feel pretty crappy on the inside in the process of doing so. And it feeds the not enoughness stories. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not achieving enough. I'm not being enough. And those are the things that, again, feed into doubt, that feed into these not enoughness stories, unworthiness stories that make us feel unconfident, that make us doubt ourselves, that make us distrust ourselves, that hold us in these small little boxes. It also is the one, it also causes us to try and grip onto control and safety. Control of other people, of other situations, of a number of different things. And again, we're trying to grip onto these things that we can't control. And so again, it's feeding this cycle of like not enoughness. Does that make sense? So the fear of failure and the illusion of perfectionism that I'm trying to strive for ultimately makes us feel pretty shitty on the inside. It makes us feel unworthy. It makes us feel unconfident in ourselves. It makes us distrust ourselves. And yeah, it's this illusion that we're never going to get, right? And so I think that is one of the biggest blocks to feeling really confident in who we truly are, is that we're holding on to this illusion of I've got to succeed, I can't fail, I have to succeed at all costs, and it has to be done perfectly. I have to be perfect, and I have to be achieving. And look, I think all of these things are wonderful things in many ways. Yeah. So when I mentioned earlier, like, I love that you're a perfectionist. I love that you think and that you deeply care about the work that you do, the quality of the work that you do, what you produce and put out to the world. I love that you deeply care about being a good human, about that you really give a shit about things. I love that about you. I love that you want to be of service, to help other people. I love that you want to be this beautiful human. I love that about you. I love that you are often critical of yourself because you want to do really well, because you care about this stuff. And I think that there's nothing, we don't want to get rid of that stuff. Yeah. We don't want to completely get rid of perfectionism. I think there's a narrative online about, I have to just overcome this perfectionist thinking or these traits about myself. I think we need to embrace them and love on them and own them. But it's really about fine-tuning that. Yeah. It's about recognizing that I want to be a really good human. I want to show up in the world in a really beautiful way. I want to give. I want to contribute. I want to be of service. I want to be an amazing, person in relationship, and any number of relationship in my life. I care about this stuff. However, I'm not going to spiral into not enoughness stories about that. I'm not going to be super critical of myself about this to my own detriment. I'm not going to spiral into people pleasing and being, the savior and over giving and over delivering at my own expense. Like all of these things that the the downsides to them, the things that just need to be reworked, that need to be adapted slightly, to dial that side of it down and really take the gifts of these. Yeah, really take the gifts of these. So it's not about changing fundamentally who you truly are. It's just about tweaking them. And when you start to overcome these blocks, when you start to do this beautiful inner work, start to dial down the inner critic, start to lessen your people pleasing tendencies and take back your power and start living for you, giving back to yourself, honoring your desires and your needs, and making sure you're making really authentic, aligned decisions for yourself. And when you start to dial down the extreme perfectionism in yourself and start to just take the gifts from that and start to show up with compassion, start to show up with courage to go out there and be a messy human, to be able to make mistakes, to be able to show up and not have all of the answers all of the time, but deeply trust yourself, then that's when beautiful inner confidence is born. That's when we start to overcome these blocks and start to feel really good in ourselves, believing of ourselves, trusting of ourselves, connected to our true self, honoring our true self and our most authentic self. And that's the gift that keeps on giving. It's the win-win situation. It gives to every person that you encounter, all of the areas of your life, all of the work and the things that you create and do in your world. It's the thing that it's that beautiful like ripple effect, yeah, when it starts from within. And that's everything that we're going to go over in the confidence code. You're going to learn the foundations of building true inner confidence, of really believing in who you truly are, feeling really confident in who you truly are, and having the courage and the confidence to go after the things that you really want to in this lifetime. And ultimately, living a life with authenticity, with alignment, and that feels really, really good. So that's a bit about the confidence code and the 3 blocks that I think are really key and fundamentally holding people back from feeling these beautiful things inside, feeling true inner confidence. And so once again, if you've resonated with this, I would love for you to think about what are the key areas, or what are the 3 blocks that I've just shared there around that block you from confidence. What are the ones that actually feel really right and true for me that I think I need to look at a little bit more? Do I think it's my inner critic that is the place to start? Am I a total people pleaser and I know I need to start there and start dialing that down? Or am I one of those people that the perfectionism in me, the fear of failure is really heightened, and that's the one that I want to start with? And then of course, come inside the confidence code. I would love to support you. It would be such an honor to go on this journey together. I'm really excited for the women who are already joining us. And yeah, get it at the lowest price point it's ever going to be. All of the links, information are in the show notes or the description below. So come join us. All right, my loves, I hope that's so helpful and supportive for you. And I'm really excited for next week's juicy episode. So I will see you then, my loves.